Hi, welcome to Fiveable. This is Carolyn Castellanos, and I will be your host for today. So today we are covering continuities in South Asia. Let's see, let me get my... Okay, well, let's get started. So as we're talking about continuities in South Asia, when we say South Asia, we're talking about India. And so one of the main things we're going to look at today are the cultural and social aspects. So we're going to look at religion and then social status. All right, so we have a mandala here. So let's kind of test your introductory knowledge here. Are mandalas part of Hinduism or Buddhism? If you want to go ahead and throw that out in the chat, whichever one you think it might be part of, or maybe it's both. Let me scroll over here. All right, any takers? Mandalas, Hinduism or Buddhism? All right, looks like we're going to be a little shy tonight. Okay, so they are actually part of both. And so the mandala basically means circle in Sanskrit, one of our oldest languages, definitely spoken in the areas of what we know as India today. And a mandala really represents kind of the cyclic nature of the universe. We're going to see that's a very common theme in both Buddhism and Hinduism. The ideas of like life, death, rebirth, right? That kind of cyclic nature. And so both Hinduism and Buddhism will use the mandala to increase spiritual awareness, often during meditation. Probably seen Buddhist monks who create them out of sand. And so they're kind of an activity to increase that concentration, which helps with your meditation. And then the idea that, not just that life is fleeting, but you don't want to holding on to something can, it can actually cause you pain and kind of get you off track. So that's often why they're made out of sand, and then you just erase them. Okay, well, hopefully this has got us thinking about Hinduism, Buddhism, but I'm, taking this from the vision of the world history teacher, and we're going to go through what you need to know about these areas to do well on the AP test, but I'm by no means an expert on Hinduism or Buddhism. I do not practice either. So if you want to add in or chime in the chat, that would be awesome. Okay, so let's look at, we've got India here, right? The Indian subcontinent. So this is our area of the world that we're going to look at. And Hinduism and Buddhism are going to originate in India. Hinduism will spread out kind of into Malaysia a little bit. And then Buddhism is going to spread into China, Japan, Korea, and it'll be much more popular than Hinduism. Okay, let's get going. All right, so some of the main things that we need to know, we'll start with Hinduism. So Hinduism is polytheistic. So it's one of our religions that is still polytheistic, meaning belief in many gods or more than one god. Today, most religions, most but not all, tend to be monotheistic, but Hinduism has held true and kept that, polytheism. But so it's when they look at gods, I think if you're monotheistic, it's a little hard to kind of understand. But these many gods are expressions of the single unity, right? This Brahma, this kind of world soul, and so they're many, but they're one. And then you can show preference for a single deity. So if you kind of align more with Shiva or Krishna, you can do more offerings or, pray more with that deity. Okay, so Hinduism is very, very old. It goes back to 1500 BCE or earlier. And so some of the kind of founding books are called the Vedas. And so there's the Vedas, I believe there's 5 Vedas. So this would be the sacred text. They are collections of poems, hymns, prayers, and different rituals. And they very much read kind of like poems. And so, so this is what the earliest form of Hinduism will be able to find the sacred writings in here. Okay. A lot of it's about different kingdoms and gods. So a lot of kind of stories is what the layperson might say. All right. In our earliest form, so this, if we're looking at 1500 to 1600 BCE, this is in the time of kind of our first civilizations, our River Valley civilizations. In your, the new redesign AP World Modern course does not go back that far, right? We start at 1200 CE. So if your teacher may have kind of skipped this part, I know I did. I was trying to get a jump ahead. But just know, like, your earliest civilizations were along river valleys. And one of our characteristics of civilizations, right? A civilization is where you get a large group of people together and they become sedentary. They stay in one place and they farm, right? They're not migratory like the nomads. Well, once you get a lot of people in one place, you start to get things like laws, right? Because you've got to keep people in control. But you also get things like religion. And so religion is often, it's a cultural expression, right? It expresses the beliefs of the people. And sometimes religion can also be used to keep people in control and establish some social order. So we'll see that. In early Hinduism, upper class women could participate in the religious rituals. We're going to see some strong patriarchy with Hinduism. And in the beginning, the upper class women kind of had an advantage. They could, participate in the festivals and rituals, but we're going to see over time that women are going to be cut out of those rituals. Okay, and if along the way you have any questions, please drop them into the chat or in the question tab. Okay, so early Hinduism, again, just kind of going back, it's going to start with the Vedas, right? And over time in this early time period, the priests, which were called Brahmins, they start to perform really elaborate rituals, right? And they're expensive. There's lots of offerings, offerings of food or gold, different items. And they often last many, many days. If you've ever been to an Indian wedding, like the minimum is 3 days. And sometimes they can be even longer than that. And so, as you can imagine, if weddings last 3 days, other rituals are going to last multiple days, right? Think of 12 days of Christmas, right? So there's a lot of different religions and festivals that can last a very long time. Well, so these Brahmins, these priests start charging really large fees, right? And you've got to pay it. You've got to have the ritual, right? This is, essential to everyone's spiritual well-being. And eventually some of the Brahmins are wealthier than kings. Well, are kings going to be able to, is that going to sit well with them, right? Probably not. So this will create some strong kind of criticism. Why are these, priests getting so wealthy? Are these rituals needed? We can't afford them anymore. Maybe even the lower classes are kind of getting shut out of the rituals because of how much they cost. And so there's going to have to be some changes. So let's see what those changes are. Okay, so we're going to get a new sacred text, the Upanishads. And so this is written a little bit later, 800 to 400 BCE. So still very early time frame, still kind of in that, first River Valley era. But this is where they're going to address the problems of those large sacrifices and kind of the wealth of the priests. So here they come in and they challenge those sacrifices, and they set up kind of a different system. All right. And so again, the response to the growing power of those Brahmins. And from the Upanishads, we're going to get the basic beliefs of Hinduism that are still lasting until today. All right. Is everybody with me so far? Go ahead and If you're feeling good about where we're going, you can put a thumbs up or some kind of emoji in the chat box over to the right. All right, Shreya is ready to go. Okay, and Oswald. All right, awesome. Okay, this is going to get a little more interactive as we go. I've got some quizzes, so I'm hoping you guys are awake and ready to kind of learn and study. All right, okay. All right, so some of the main beliefs are, it's called the Brahman. And so the Brahman is the world soul or the ultimate reality. And so this is what we're striving for in Hinduism. And this is what all those gods are part of, right? This world soul, this ultimate reality. And if you're a good Hindu, you're striving for moksha. And moksha is union with the Brahman. So this union with the world soul, right? It's there, it exists, but it's hard to find, right? You can't see it. And so if we're thinking religion, we're thinking those elements of faith. There's a lot of faith and there's a lot of work that goes into this moksha. Okay, so how do we attain moksha? So when I think of religion, I always think, well, okay, there's this end goal, right? To go to heaven or something like that. And so it's to attain that moksha with Hinduism. So one of our first beliefs is Maya. So Maya is this illusion, right? It's the illusion of the world. So the world is this big illusion. And I feel like this kind of makes a lot of sense, right? And what they're trying to say is, you know, you've got all this materialism in the world. You've got, you know, all these things going on that don't really matter, right? You've got your social media, you've got TV, you've got games, you've got all kinds of distractions, right, that are keeping you from your moksha and from realizing this world soul or the Brahman. And those things aren't real, right? So, you know, your phone, right, it's not necessarily an illusion. It's there, you can see it and feel it. But how important is it, right? Is it really just kind of something distracting you from your main goals? Okay. Get off my soapbox now. So karma, of course, we've probably heard of karma. So kind of the basic definition I would give is the belief that pure actions will be rewarded in the next life. So we usually think of it as what comes around goes around, right? If I'm nice to people, nice things will happen to me. If I'm mean, you know, and I talk about someone behind their back, you know, don't be surprised when the same thing happens to me, that kind of thing. But we're going to see with Hinduism, there's a lot of this pure actions, right? In Buddhism as well, there's good actions. And so karma is, right, have those good actions and it's going to come back to you. Reincarnation, okay, so this one's rebirth. And so Hindus do believe that you live more than one life, right? That you work to obtain moksha, and if you don't attain it, you're going to be reborn and you get another chance, right? And so you live, die, and live again until you achieve that moksha. And there's basically the belief that it's not going to happen in your first lifetime. And so samsara is the endless cycle of birth, death, and rebirth. And so this is going to keep going until you finally achieve the moksha. Okay, and dharma. Dharma is a big one. Dharma means right behavior, right social order, or doing your duty. So I always learn this as dharma means duty, right? So we all have a duty in life and we need to do that, right? We're on a path and we've got to do things that are right. So obey the law, do a good job. For me as a teacher, right? It's my duty to be a good teacher. And that's something that's very, very important. And we're going to get a little more into dharma as we go. Okay, so how are we feeling with Hinduism? So we've got, let's recap. Got to achieve moksha, right? And ways that'll help you do that is, karma, having pure actions, realizing, let's go back here. I forgot already. Realizing that the world's this illusion. And so you've got to focus on doing these good things, your karma, your dharma, and then, you're going to be reborn if you don't make it in that first life. Okay, so we've got those basic tenets. Now, the interesting thing about Hinduism is that it's closely tied to India's social status system, or social classes. And so these social classes will develop very, very early, starting in that River Valley time frame. They start to get really defined social classes. Okay, so let's look at our pyramid up here. And we'll come back to this twice born groups, but we've got Brahmins on the top. And so your Brahmins are your priests, scholars, professors. So this is one of the few where teachers are up there in the top there. That makes me happy. Your next group are your Kshatriyas, and these are your warriors, right? So your military, they're up here. And then your Vaishyas, these are merchants, a lot of the merchant class, right? If you've been studying with Five of Wool, you probably already know that trade is very important from the birth of civilization all the way through 2019. And your landowners, right? So these are, it's pretty good upper middle class going on here. And then your next class is your Sudras. And so these are definitely kind of on the lower end. These would be your farmers. So they're farming someone else's land, right? So the landowners typically are not farmers, and farmers typically don't own their own land. So they're farming someone else's land, servants, different kind of lower class workers. So those are your Sudras. And then there's the Untouchables, or Dalits. So this is the lowest caste. This is the one that you probably don't want to be a part of. And so they're called Dalits, D-A-L-I-T-S, but we commonly call them untouchables. So over time, these people got the name untouchable because you don't want to touch them. And so they're associated with all dirty jobs. So think micro dirty jobs. I don't know if that show's still on, but I think we'd have to relegate him to this class if he were in ancient India. But they have dirty jobs. So we usually know of them as street sweepers, street sweeping, poop and trash off the streets, right? They had horses, so they poop in the streets. And then like cleaning toilets. If you've seen Slumdog Millionaire, it's going to be in there. You'll see that in that film. And so definitely dirty jobs, anything from housekeeping to cleaning to butchering animals. So butchering animals was definitely an unclean job. Leather tanning, definitely an unclean job. And so they're in this lower caste. Oh, twice born. Yes. Okay. Thank you, Shreya, for keeping me on track. Okay. So I was going to say something else. So twice born groups. All right. So the theory is that you're born into your caste and you cannot move up or down. So if you're born an untouchable, you're stuck being an untouchable. If, the princess wants to marry you, you can't marry her. You have to marry within your class. And even if you did marry the princess, you cannot move up in class. You are stuck down here in the land of untouchables. And so there's even more variations within each group. So like the street sweepers would stick together, the butchers, would stick together. It actually gets very, very complicated once you start to look into this. Now, so these are definitely in their first life, right? And so the theory is you probably are born into one of these lower castes. And as you're reincarnated, if you did your karma, did your dharma, right? You were a good person, participated in your rituals, you're going to move up and be a Sudra. And then as you're, reborn again, you're going to be in the Vaishyas. And so the theory is you can't be a Vaishya, Kshatriya, or Brahmin in your first life, right? That's not going to happen. So you get here by being reborn and you move up, right? Until you finally achieve the moksha. Okay, awesome question, Shreya. Let me know if I answer that. If not, I'll go back. Oh, here's my notes here. Okay, so we'll just go back. So you're born into your social class. So definitely we're showing inequality, right? That there's inherent inequality, and the religion Hinduism does enforce this. So this isn't just, say, social that the government imposes on the people. It's actually going to be embedded into the religion, and the religion will enforce this. And so as you study with us and study in your classes, you're going to see religions do enforce kind of social status. Christianity is going to enforce patriarchy, but that'll be for another day. Okay, so no social mobility. Now, how do we get away with saying, like, you're born into this untouchable, you're doomed to, clean toilets your whole life, but, be really good, and, like, you'll be reborn into a Sudra. Well, the idea of Dharma, like the duty of your station. So if your station is untouchable, like, this is one way we kind of ingrain in the untouchables, like, hey, it's your duty. Like, if you just clean those toilets, don't rebel, you're going to be reincarnated. And so this is one way of, I guess, getting people to accept this lower social class. Okay. All right. Hinduism and gender. All right. So now this is, our ancient times, right? Things have changed since today. But if we're going back to this time period, 600 to 1200 CE, it was very patriarchal, right? So this one, and of course today, things are better, but very patriarchal. Women were also viewed as unclean. So women did not have to be untouchables, right? They were all the different classes. They would be in the Brahman class. Now, women weren't priests, but they would be in that social class where they would marry the priests and scholars and rulers and stuff. But they were seen as unclean, basically because, childbirth involves blood, right? That's an unclean thing, similar to the butchering the animals. I took some really great college classes on this. It was also like, we read some things that it constantly made me angry, but it was really, really interesting. And so if women are unclean and, they're seen as less than men and not as intelligent, eventually they were forbidden to learn the Vedas, right? And so early on, Hinduism was not exactly great for women, but they will believe and they'll take part in it. And so we talked about how early on your wealthier women could participate in the public rituals, and then over time that's going to go away. And so there will be certain rituals that women can participate in, over time, and that'll kind of come and go. Okay, this is my favorite, not favorite because I like it, but favorite because I can't believe this actually happened. So if we're talking about, patriarchy and women being unclean and women not being equal to men, this is definitely the most extreme example I think I've ever heard of. So over time, they developed something called Sati, or widow burning. So, as you know, virginity is often, prized, right, in the ancient world, even today, right? So you're encouraged to, not have premarital sex, obviously not have affairs, extramarital affairs while you're married. And so we know this is a virtue that they want women to have. And so being a virgin upon marriage was, very common. But somehow it goes to an extreme of, well, you should only be with one man your entire life. And so that's great if your husband lives a long life with you. But what happens when your husband dies very young? So somehow over time they developed, well, okay, yeah, your husband died. You should only be with one man. Now, if you're wealthy, your family's wealthy, they can take care of you. So typically women didn't work, right? Now these are going to be your wealthier women. They typically, shouldn't be working. So if your husband dies, typically your son inherits the wealth. So now it's left to your son to take care of you, right? And he better, right, after you took care of him so long. But they get to the point of, well, okay, you can't remarry. That would be unchaste, right? Now, if your son or you don't have any children, or your children have passed away, where they can't afford to take care of you, somehow we get this, I'm a burden to my son, and we get the idea of I should die along with my husband and jump on his funeral pyre. So this is what this is. So so they would, typically burn the husband's body, and the women start to jump on it and burn with him. All right. Everybody with me so far? Okay, so this one, yeah, definitely an extreme, but we have the Diary of Fanny Park. So she is a British woman who has come to India. Now this is 1828. So the practice of sati or widow burning goes on through the 1800s. And so when the British come in and they take over India, they're eventually going to try to outlaw it. And for issues of human rights. And it was actually really hard for them to kind of get the practice to go away because it just became so ingrained. So let's read together what Fanny wrote. Okay, so she's actually witnessing this funeral, this sati. And she said, let me go back. If a widow touch either food or water from the time her husband expires until she ascend the pile, the funeral pile, she cannot by Hindu law be burned with the body. Therefore, the magistrate kept the corpse 48 hours in the hope that hunger would compel the woman to eat. Okay, so this is a British magistrate, and he's like, surely she doesn't want to burn on this funeral pyre. Let me keep the body long enough that she's going to have to eat, and so she's going to have to forfeit her right to sati. Well, so he's underestimating how much she believes in this, right? So the guards were set over her, but she never touched anything. My husband accompanied the magistrate to see the sati. About 5,000 people were collected together on the banks of the Ganges. The pile was then built and the putrid body placed upon it. The magistrate stationed guards to prevent the people from approaching it. After having bathed in the river, the widow lighted a brand, walked around the pile, set it on fire, and then mounted cheerfully. The flame caught and blazed up instantly. She sat down, placing the head of the corpse on her lap, and repeated several times the usual form, Ram Ram Sati, meaning God, God, I am chaste. So of course we see this chaste, right? This is the whole idea that she should not be with another man. Okay, I find this extremely terrifying and also very interesting at the same time. So this happened. We have witnesses. We have the British are constantly writing about this and, kind of wondering, how it's so ingrained. Now, actually, her letter goes on, but I didn't want to include all of it. So she actually starts to get off of the funeral pyre. She starts screaming in pain to get off, and an Indian man holds up the sword to her and basically pushes her back on. So making sure that she finishes her sati. And so one reason she's going to complete this is so that she can be reborn, right? She can be reborn. This is part of her duty or dharma, and then eventually achieve the moksha, right? The union with the Brahman. And so she's probably expecting to be reborn as a higher class. So, okay, where are we going with this? All right, you guys ready for a quiz? Should we do some quiz time? So I have some polls. So the first one, so they kind of are on order. So on the top would be poll 1. So if you want to put your answers in there and kind of compete a little bit, that would be awesome. So we're going to play a little game called Which Caste Do I Belong To? So let's see if we, remember them. Okay, so my first little description, is life for me in this part of society is not easy. Everywhere I go, people treat me poorly. I clean toilets, pick up dead animals from the streets, and clean up waste products left behind in the city. My only hope is to have good karma. I do not want to be reincarnated as this member of Indian society ever again. All right, well, if you're feeling ready for a quiz, go ahead and jump into the polls, and this would be the first one. So which caste do I belong to? I'll give you guys a second. All right, let me check our polls here real quick. Okay, all right, we got this. All right. Sorry, it's kind of hard for me. I can't see more than one thing at once. Okay. All right, so you are right. We've got untouchables here. Okay, poll 2. All right, awesome. Untouchables. That was an easy one. Let's see if we can make this a little bit harder. Okay, second one. So if you want to answer in the second one or just play along with this, whatever works for you. I don't like hurting people, but I must follow Dharma. If I am sent to war, it is my duty to fight for and defend my country. If those untouchables start a rebellion, it is part of my responsibility to end it quickly. If I were them, I wouldn't create trouble. That's just bad karma. They won't be reincarnating to a higher caste anytime soon. Okay, awesome. I love it. Oswald, like the second one, I forgot the name. Okay. So yes, you are right. It is the second one. Anybody remember the name of the second one? I can't spell like this second and third one. Okay, the Kshatriyas. All right, so these are our warrior class. Let's do one more. You guys are awesome. Okay. I spend my day working in the field of a landowner who was kind enough to hire me. There are so many of us that it is hard to find a job. I think he hired me only for good karma. But I have work, so I'm happy. Sometimes I am invited into the home and perform other duties as needed. It isn't so bad, but I wouldn't mind having my own property or trade someday. Okay, so which caste does he belong to? Okay, awesome. Sudras, great. And sometimes I see these spelled SH or just the S. I learned Sudras, so I'm going to go with it. And this is about the extent of my any attempt at any language from India. Okay, Sudras, awesome. All right, well, let's get to Buddhism. Everyone ready for Buddhism? Okay, again, let me know if you have questions or haven't explained something thoroughly. Okay, so our first kind of religion from India was Hinduism. And so India will develop another religion called Buddhism. So see if you can see, some things that they're carrying over from Hinduism, because it's definitely gonna influence Buddhism since they're from the same country. All right, so Buddhism develops a little bit later between about 566 to 486 BCE. So still, early time frame. All right, so let me tell you this tale of Siddhartha Gautama. So, see if I remember it. So Siddhartha is a prince, and he lives in a palace. And so he lived his whole life in the palace, and it's huge, right? And there's the gardens and the grounds, and he's never been outside of the palace walls. And so he turns 18 or 20, and he's finally allowed to venture outside of his bubble. And so he goes into the city and he sees suffering. And he's never seen suffering before, right? He's a prince. So he's always had plenty to eat. When he gets sick or anyone in the household gets sick, there's a doctor, they're cured, and they have all the finest luxuries. So he sees people in poverty, he sees hungry people, sick people with diseases, and he's shocked, right? He's shocked, he's never seen this, and he comes to a couple conclusions. Well, actually, before he comes to the conclusions, he's going to kind of go on this spiritual journey. This is the tree. He meditates under a tree, and he comes to some conclusions. Okay, let me get my reminder. So Siddhartha Gautama is going to be the founder of Buddhism. He's also going to be the one that we know as Buddha. And this is supposedly what we believe is the tree that he sat under and came, kind of received his revelations. Okay, I would like to go there someday. Check out that tree. Okay, so he sees the suffering. He goes on a spiritual quest, trying to reconcile, right? So imagine growing up in all this wealth, not realizing there's pain and suffering and feeling guilty about it. And what can I do about it? So he's going to create this religion, Buddhism, and it's going to have the goal of achieving enlightenment, which he will achieve at the age of 35. And then he'll spend the rest of his life teaching about Buddhism. All right, so let's see what kind of revelations he came to in the meat of Buddhism. Oh, and of course, Buddha means the enlightened one, right? So he's going to reach this enlightenment. All right, so he comes to the realization that there's 4 noble truths. All right. Human life involves suffering and sorrow. So that's the first thing. You can't get around it. So even the prince has suffering, right? His mom's going to die. His grandma's going to die. His dog's going to die. There's going to be some kind of suffering or sorrow, even if you are, the wealthiest person around. The desire for pleasure and material things causes suffering and sorrow. And boy, does it ever, right? Wanting things, wanting the latest iPhone or PlayStation or, fancy car. Or, man, why are jeans like $125? They used to be like $35. I don't know. I will go with the cheap $35 jeans. But, wanting these things, it causes you to suffer. And so one of the big things Buddhism says is, if you don't desire things, reject your desires, you're going to be a lot happier. And I think he's kind of right. Although every time I think I'm getting good at not wanting stuff, I have a relapse. So this is very, very hard. Renouncing desire frees the soul from suffering. So this is our third noble truth. And this is going to be one of the big tenets of Buddhism. You've got to reject those desires, right? That's the only way you can free your soul from suffering. All right. And then the Eightfold Path will lead you to nirvana or enlightenment. Okay, good on our... Okay, so let's see, what is the Eightfold Path? So the 4 noble truths are kind of the theory behind Buddhism, and the Eightfold Path is going to get you there. Okay, so right view. So having the right view, you've got to have that to achieve enlightenment. So in layman's terms, we would say, see life as it is, right? And so there's also that idea of the Maya, the illusion of the world, right? Those material things that you want, or maybe you want you want this prestigious job because it sounds great and people will respect you, but you're really not interested in that job, right? You've got to see life as it is and kind of see through that whole illusion. Okay, easier said than done, right? Right intentions. So live a life of goodwill, right? Don't be mean. Don't intend to hurt people, right? Have good intentions. Okay, so that one, easy enough. Right speech. So no lies or gossip, right? There's no need to, gossip, spread lies, say mean things, mean what you say. Right action. So be law-abiding and honest, right? And do the right thing, right? So religion is usually not ever anti-government, right? So usually, they're like, obey the laws, right? And so Buddhism is going to say the same thing. Right living. So avoid harming others, right? You always want to do that. And right effort, seek to prevent evil, right? And so whether you're working on, achieving enlightenment or achieving moksha or, making a 5 on your AP test, you got to put some effort into it, right? And you've got to have effort in the right places. And so with Buddhism, you need to seek to prevent evil. It's not good enough to just not cause evil. You got to stop it in its tracks. So there's kind of an element of social justice here. And then right mindfulness. Be aware of oneself, right? Your mind, what you're thinking, right? Are you, are you constantly negative? You think the glass is half empty, and that kind of spills in. So if you're always negative, that's going to spill into how you see your life, what things you say, your actions. And then right concentration. And so you've got to be able to concentrate and meditate to achieve that enlightenment. And so meditation is definitely key in Buddhism. Okay. All right. We've got the Eightfold Path. Okay, so everybody with me right now, if you want to put a thumbs up in that chat box. Are we ready to compare Hinduism and Buddhism? Okay, awesome. All right, so so on the AP test, we've got a lot of cause and effect, compare and contrast, and change in continuity over time. All right, so let's see what we have in common. Let me get my pointer out here. All right. I tried to, this is the best chart I could come up with. Okay, so over here I've got kind of Hinduism, the differences over here, and then what they both have in common. So Hinduism loves their priests, right? They like that it's an organized religion with rituals, right? You kind of go to the church, you participate in the festivals. There's certain things we all need to do, and priests help you with this, right? Buddhism, it's your own spiritual path. You don't need a priest. You don't need a church, right? You need to follow your Eightfold Path. And so this is very different, right? This would be unorganized religion, right? It's your personal journey. Hinduism, of course, is polytheistic. Buddhism doesn't deny any gods. They just can't help you achieve nirvana or enlightenment. So you can worship them, you can have them, but they're not really important to Buddhism. Hinduism says only twice born or upper caste members can achieve moksha. So in your first lifetime, you cannot achieve that union with the Brahman or the world soul. But Buddhism says all can achieve nirvana. So lower caste, upper caste, women, you can do it on your first go round. It's probably not going to happen, but it is possible. Hinduism is very entrenched in patriarchy. So women are, not as equal as men. But with Buddhism, women are spiritually equal. They can achieve nirvana, and they're also socially equal. So we'll come back down here. Hinduism, social inequality, right? Definitely caste system shows that. And the fact that Hinduism supports the caste system. And then Buddhism, all people are equal. So men, women, upper, lower class. So there's going to be a lot of appeal for Buddhism. Buddhism is actually going to challenge Hinduism and Confucianism and a few other religions. Okay, so what do they have in common? Maya, right? Life is an illusion. That is something that both have in common. Karma, right? What comes around goes around, are your right actions. Rebirth and samsara. So samsara remembers that cycle of life, death, rebirth until you achieve enlightenment or moksha. And then both believe meditation is key to, achieving those end goals. And then Dharma. So we think of Dharma a lot with Hinduism, but because Buddhism comes from India, that Dharma will carry over. And it's kind of, think of the Eightfold Path. Eightfold Path. Part of that is your Dharma, right? Kind of living your right actions, your right speech. That is also kind of part of that Dharma. And so I'm in San Antonio, Texas, and we have a Hindu temple. I haven't been to it. We do have some Buddhist centers. So one is called the Dharma Center of San Antonio. I think I've driven by it many times. And so I'm like, oh yeah, Dharma. Okay, that's Buddhist, not just Hinduism. I always say I'm going to go check them out. I need to give myself a field trip, and then I get busy and don't do that. Okay, so something your teachers might ask you are similarities and differences between Hinduism and Buddhism. So hopefully we covered all those. All right, we ready for one more game? I think we've got 12 or 13 minutes. Okay, so if you want to jump into the polls or if you just want to answer in the chat, either way. Oh, well, I'll come back to that. Okay, so am I a Hindu or a Buddhist? Which one am I? Okay, this would be poll 4. I go to temple often and participate in religious rituals. So Hindu or Buddhist? Let's see. Let me check out those polls. Anyone into which one was this poll 4? All right, we've got Hindu. Okay, I'm just checking here, making sure you guys are working on these. All right, okay. So yes, this one would be Hindu. Okay, I believe in reincarnation and know that it will take many lifetimes to achieve my religious goal. So Hindu, Buddhist, or is it both? All right, it is both, right? So both believe in reincarnation. If only our AP test questions were this easy. Oh my gosh. Okay. I believe all people are equal and all can achieve nirvana. Okay, wait for it. Buddhist, right? And the Hinduism does have that element of inequality. So again, we're talking about South Asia religions a long time ago, around year 1200 and before, but not today. Okay, so we've got a few minutes left, so let's keep going. Let's go over some of the changes and continuities in Buddhism. So Hinduism will suffer serious competition from Buddhism. So, the idea that women have equality, poor people have equality, right? Buddhism rejects the caste system, right? All are equal. So that is definitely going to appeal to a lot of people in India. So Buddhism will actually become really popular. The Emperor Ashoka will promote Buddhism, but this is way before our 1200 time period. He's actually one guy I'm kind of upset that we don't get to talk about much. And our lower caste and women, of course, enjoy equality. And monasticism offers an alternative life for men and women. So think monastery, right? So we've heard of like Christian monks and monasteries and convents for nuns. Well, Buddhism's going to have that first, right? So a monastery where your monks or nuns go and live and pray and work on their enlightenment. And so women were definitely able to do this too. And so this actually offers an alternative to women. So think about if you're a woman in this early time frame, your job was to get married. And so if you don't, want to be married and lose your property to this man and basically be, under his control, you could join the monastery. And so a lot of women will actually do this, and then they get much, much more freedom when they do this. Okay. So Hinduism is going to react again. So we've noticed that when the rituals got too intense and too expensive and the Brahmin priests got too rich, they're going to kind of take a step back, and we get the Upanishads, which will kind of change the religion. And so after Buddhism, Hinduism will change again. And you can see religions do change with the times. So we'll get another set of sacred writing, the Bhagavad Gita. And this says ordinary people who perform their dharma can reach moksha. So this is what people were wanting, right? And this is what Buddhism was giving them. And so they'll change their teachings. This is what Julia Roberts was studying in Eat, Pray, Love, if you've seen that movie. And the other thing that they'll do is they will incorporate Buddhism. So Hinduism is one of these really interesting religions in that they just layer on, right? So they're like, layer on multiple gods, right? And then they're like, oh, well, this Buddhist ideals, the Eightfold Path, right? That's great. That's going to help you. If it helps you achieve enlightenment, it's going to help you achieve moksha. There's similar ideas. And so they'll just kind of layer that on. And so Buddhism will actually die down in India. It won't be as popular as it was, but Buddhism will be very popular in China. So it's actually more popular in China than in India. Okay, changes to Buddhism. All right. This is one I want to get to before time's up. So again, Buddhism is more popular in China than India. Okay, one of the big changes is Mahayana Buddhism. So Mahayana means great vehicle. And Buddhism will have many branches. So think about Christianity, you've got Methodist, Baptist, Catholic, right? Islam, you've got Sunni, Shia, right? Sufi. So you've got all these different divisions. And so Buddhism will have Mahayana, Tibetan, Zen, Theravada. And so Mahayana is, I think, if you're good knowing Mahayana, you should be pretty good on your AP test. Okay, so this one is very different. So they add in bodhisattvas, which are people who stop their entrance to nirvana to help others on their path to nirvana. So these are basically priests. So now suddenly we have priests that can have a temple, you can pay them to help you reach enlightenment. So this is a big stray away from your traditional Buddhism. Buddha is now a god, right? So in this form of Buddhism, he is worshipped like a god. So also a very big deviation from our original Buddhism. And there's the idea of a heaven and hell. So original Buddhism, those ideas are irrelevant, right? You want to achieve the enlightenment, this one with the universe, right? And you do that through your meditation and your Eightfold Path. And it's going to come to you if you do things right. And now there's the idea of a heaven and a hell. So you've added in a deity, a bad place and a good place. So this is extremely different. And now acts of piety, such as donating money to a monastery can help you achieve enlightenment. All right. Okay, guys, come on. What religion, something's got to have influenced this. What religion do we think influenced Mahayana Buddhism? All right. Christianity or Islam? All right, awesome. Good. So the idea of one God could be both Christianity or Islam. Heaven and hell is in all our, monotheistic religions. But yeah, and this donating money. So this is very different. So if you're ever asked about how Buddhism changes, do Mahayana and your traditional Buddhism and go with those differences, and you should be really, really good. Okay, real quick, we've got 5 minutes. So let's do another poll. All right, so, okay. This one might be a little tricky, but let's just see. Well, no, let's go back. So the temples, so you can always tell if it's Mahayana Buddhism. Oh, I forgot the most important thing. Oh my gosh, write this down. So as we get more and more merchants on the Silk Road that start to spread Buddhism, being a merchant is a very, prestigious job. And it doesn't really jive with Buddhism because you can't have material wealth. You've got to reject those desires. So Buddhism isn't really working for a lot of the wealth that's growing. And so that's where Mahayana responds to that, right? And so you get this additional kind of change in Buddhism, right? Where Hinduism was always responsive to what the people were wanting. Buddhism will do it, but it'll be in a different kind of sect, right? You still have your traditional Buddhism and now Mahayana. So their temples are going to be filled with these offerings, with money, gold, and all that. Okay, so let's do this real quick before I run out of time. Okay, so what do you think? Is this Buddha right here a representative of your traditional Buddhism or Mahayana? Okay, this might be a little hard to answer. So this one is our traditional Buddhism. So if we go back, you will see, Buddha's usually, it's very plain, carved in stone. Let's take a look at our Mahayana here. Okay, Buddhism or Mahayana Buddhism. So we see like this is the temple, right? So you go up all these steps. Look at the gold, right? It's this is very cloudy. This gold is shined constantly. It would be all, green and looking horrible from the rain. This is definitely a Mahayana temple with your gold Buddha and all the riches and the wealth out here. So that's where I was going with that one. Okay, let's do one more. Health is the greatest gift. Contentment is the greatest wealth. Health is the greatest gift. Contentment is the greatest wealth. So Buddhism or Mahayana or both? Oh my gosh. Let's see. All right, I put traditional Buddhism, but I mean, it really goes with traditional Buddhism, but I'm sure Mahayana would say that as well, but we kind of know they're okay with the materialism there. All right, so, oh, one more. Okay. Traditional or Mahayana? How many quizzes I put in here? I was having a little fun with these. Okay, Mahayana, because we see the halo, right? So here, oh, okay. So we think, oh, well, that's traditional Buddhism. What would have tipped you off is the halo, which I don't even notice anymore. So I could definitely see getting this question wrong. But, and, this is not a test. You're not being graded on this. But the halo would signal Mahayana, where Buddha is a god. So thank goodness I'm not writing those AP tests because questions would not probably be very good. All right, well, that's what I have on Hinduism, Buddhism, some changes, some compare and contrast, caste system definitely, and some games. Are there any questions? Oh, all right. Well, thank you. Well, if you have questions, I will kind of keep the chat open for a little bit. Thank you for joining in. And we've got oh, I'm really glad it helped. It's a little awkward not being able to see your faces. So I'm like, oh my gosh, are they listening? But I'm glad you can be in your pajamas and be relaxed and kind of tune in and out at your pace. But I hope to be able to stream with you guys again. So we've got a lot of great streams from teachers and students, and I had a great time. I hope y'all did too.